There we go. Yeah, so welcome. So I just want to extend a warm welcome to Chip and then Hollis, who have joined us from the Environmental Protection Agency today to discuss some great efforts that they have been putting into place as it relates to sustainability. So please feel free to ask any questions of our guest speakers today. You can put them in the chat or, Chip, I'll let you decide if you want them to speak up during the conversation. But either way, we are excited that you all have joined us this morning. So Chip, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. If you will please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then, yeah, you can take it from there.
Great. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having us on board. I know I initially said that I would be the only presenter, but my colleague Hollis, who is a proud UNC Charlotte graduate, wanted to get on board. And so she has some exciting things to talk about as well during the presentation. So I'm Chip Gurkin. I work in the Office of Community Revitalization at the US EPA up here in DC. I am from North Carolina. I'm from Dunn, which is just a little bit above Fayetteville, and a proud graduate of the UNC system from UNC Chapel Hill and from East Carolina University. And I've been at the EPA about 13 years now. And so I'm excited to talk to you guys about EPA overall, and then a little bit about our office, and then we're going to have Hollis talk a little bit more specifically about some of our programs that we're working on now. And Hollis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hey, everyone. I'm Hollis Maykey. Of course, I work in the Office of Community Revitalization in the Community Assistance and Research Division. I haven't been at EPA as long as Chip. He's a vet. I've been here for about 2 years. And so I graduated from UNC Charlotte in December of 2016. And I actually was in the geography department. So I got my Bachelor of Science in Geography with a concentration in community and regional planning. And I'm originally from Washington, DC, where I am currently right now. And so I went back home and I just furthered my degree and got my master's degree at the George Washington University in their Sustainable Urban Planning program. And so I work a lot on our, equity work. Also, I'll be talking about some of my work with EVs and electric vehicles, because that has been a kind of hot topic now, and also some mapping and data tools that we have here at EPA. So I'm getting back to my roots of geography. So if any geographers or planners on the call, please, feel free to reach out to me. I love to talk to planners and, geographers. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks, Chip, for inviting me in.
Excellent. Okay, I am gonna, are there any questions right off the bat before we start our presentation? And I'll say that I'm happy to field, we don't have to be particularly formal about this. I'm happy to field questions as we go through this.
And just a quick reminder, everyone, if you would and can, let's try to turn on our cameras and be engaged with Chip and Hollis as much as we can to show them that we're with them and, here to be present with them. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And Gonzalo, I know that may be a challenge for you. We had trouble yesterday. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to see if I can pull up my presentation here.
And I have a quick question before we begin while Chip pulls up. The students here, what level are we? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, third year, fifth year?
Students, if you can type in the chat and answer Hollis's question, what class level are you? Are you a graduate student, undergrad, freshman, sophomore? We kind of have this open to anyone at university, so it probably varies.
Cool. Awesome, thank you.
Good mix.
Great. So again, yes, we work at EPA in the Office of Community Revitalization. Just a sort of very basic primer. So EPA's mission is to protect human health and the environment. We largely do this by implementing the laws that Congress passes. So we do laws and regulations and permits and all kinds of things, both from a national level, but also at a state level and a local level, and even at a facility level as well. We have large swaths of our agency that conduct research on environmental protection and various other issues. We do a lot of public education about environmental issues and working with community groups to help protect the environment at the local level and state level as well. And we partner with states and local governments, and I should have in here as well other countries and other organizations, like I said, to protect human health through grants and technical assistance like what we do, and then also through lots of other various ways. Some very sort of boring stuff. So the way we're organized is that a lot of these things in blue here are here in the headquarters office in DC. So we have offices that are largely based around the sort of major environmental laws. So the Clean Air Act is largely enacted by the Office of Air and Radiation, the Clean Water Act and other water things by the Office of Water. And then we have 10 regional offices around the country that work with the areas that they are in. The region for you guys is Region 4 in Atlanta, which covers most of the Southeast. And so we're sort of divvied up in these, but we try to work together as much as we can. But as with any large organization, that can sometimes be a challenge. And these offices are all over the country. So if you wanted to work at EPA, there's a lot of opportunities all over the place, wherever you would want to go. I just noticed this morning that there is an office, it looks like in Charlotte or near Charlotte, and I have no idea what that might be. So we have the 10 regional offices that are pretty big, but then we also have lots of labs and other types of organizations all over the place. So there's a big one in Durham that does a lot of our air sort of research that goes on there, air quality. And also some of our HR offices, some of our offices of research and development. But yeah, so we're located all over the place. So really quickly, so if you're interested in careers with EPA, I would recommend epa.gov/careers. A lot of great information there on not only what kinds of jobs are available, but also what types of jobs. So you see here a listing of sort of some various things. So whatever your major is, we probably have something for you. And it's a great time right now to be in the job market, and we're certainly hiring and scaling up. And so, we'd love to have you aboard. So drilling down a little bit, our little tiny corner of the agency is the Office of Community Revitalization, as I said. So we help communities at the local, state, regional level. Largely right now, we're working at the sort of local level, but we do a lot of other things as well. And so they generally apply for assistance from us because they have some issue or opportunity that they would like some help with around the built environment. And so we provide technical and planning assistance to those communities. We also develop sort of tools and publications to help communities on their own. So our website has lots of documents and tools that the communities can use on their own. And then we work with other federal agencies and state and local governments as well in that area. And so we do get a lot of the questions sometimes of why is EPA involved in helping cities grow the way they do. Well, it's not the first thing that comes up, the top of mind when you think about the environment, but of course the way our cities are built impacts the environment really fundamentally. So if you have a community that is walkable and bikeable, it's fairly compactly built, that is going to reduce your air emissions from cars. It's going to reduce the amount of impervious surfaces. That's going to improve water quality. And so there's lots of different things that we work on. And of course, lots of impervious surfaces often impacts flooding, things like that. So we help communities in lots of different areas. And so here's sort of a short list of some of the things that we work with communities on, and a map of sort of where we've worked. And so a lot of our work sort of focuses on downtown revitalization and mixed use development. We work a lot on transportation issues, which you'll hear a little bit more about later, but making sure that communities are walkable and bikeable. Thinking about public transit, we work a lot in equitable development as well. So, when we're improving these places, a lot of times or helping the community improve themselves, there's often a challenge of gentrification, of having displacement of folks who had lived there previously. So we're really focused on trying to make sure that folks who live there are able to do so after those areas are improved. We work with communities on a program we have called Local Foods, Local Places, which is a collaborative effort with several other agencies, including Department of Agriculture, to help communities develop local food economies. or improve their local food economies. We work on disaster resilience. So obviously, as we're going forward, there's going to be already a lot of damage from hurricanes and extreme heat events and wildfires, and that's only going to increase over the years. And so helping communities make sure they're prepared for those things and able to rebuild afterwards. We work on green infrastructure. I mentioned sort of water challenges, helping communities with that, and then infill development, sort of helping communities work in areas that have been disinvested and try to help sort of revitalize and clean those up and get them ready for reuse rather than sprawling outwards instead. So some of the ways that we do this, sort of our role in this, is that we are a convener. Certainly local governments can have meetings about different things, but we find that having that EPA is having an event in our community tends to pull people in, and we're able to get other sort of state and federal agencies there and local groups that might not otherwise show up or be involved. I did a project in a rural community in California a few years ago, and we had lots of state agencies and federal agencies there, and the county manager was just amazed and stood up in the meeting and said, "We've never been able to get anyone to come here before to help us with things, and this is, it was really helpful for that community." So that's a positive that we bring. So we provide topical expertise. We come in, we have worked with a team of contractors as well that are facilitators and urban planners that can bring some of the knowledge to especially rural communities that don't have a lot of capacity at the local government level. We manage the process. We serve as federal government liaisons, like I said, bringing in other agencies who have other programs and resources that can be useful to the community as we go forward. We foster relationship building that's within the community as well as externally. We facilitate and we sort of coach them as they go along to develop really actionable sort of actions and plans to move forward. We have a very set and sort of proven effective process that we go through with these communities, where we work with them over a couple of months leading into a day-and-a-half workshop that we have in the community, where we talk to residents. We have, again, all these other agency and organizational representatives at the meeting. And so we go through lots of activities. You see here a mapping exercise that this community is going through. So there we would have folks in the community identify, here are areas of interest, things that we really value. Here are some areas that need work. Here are some areas of opportunity to improve our community. And then we work through that and develop a very sort of tight, short-range action plan that the community can enact to achieve their goals going forward. These sort of come in lots of different areas. So sometimes it is, we work with, these are sort of examples from some of our action plans that we've had with communities. So sometimes it's talking specifically about the physical infrastructure of the community. So for this example of making sure that the sidewalk network and the streets are safe for everyone, regardless of disability or level of ability. Sometimes it's about sort of in the weeds policies and codes and zoning. So how do you allow for mixed use development in certain areas and things like that. Sometimes it's placemaking. So how do you make a place attractive and more valuable to the community? So in this one, there's some information about sort of landscaping, lighting, wayfinding, and things like that. And then sometimes it's bringing people together to talk about partnerships and networks. This example here, sort of trying to bring, this is an area where there were lots of museums and other organizations in a particular area, and trying to help them work together to improve the neighborhood. I'm going to turn it over to Hollis now to talk specifically about one of the programs that we've just started running recently and are trying to expand. I will go ahead and ask, are there any questions now as we're handed over? Or comments? All right, Hollis.
All righty, thank you, Chip. And I'm going to turn my video on just so that you guys don't lose me. I just got a message saying that my internet is acting up. So anyways, thanks, Chip. So as Chip was mentioning, our office does a lot of community assistance and technical assistance and planning assistance. And so one of the kind of hotter topics now out, we would imagine, is electric vehicles and electric vehicle infrastructure. And so one of the programs or areas that I now kind of work around is around EVs. And, what the heck does EPA have to do with EVs? That sounds like something the Department of Energy would do, or the Department of Transportation. But we're in connection with both agencies and, other organizations out there who are working in the space of electric vehicles. And then also I'll be just going into just some of our EPA mapping tools that we have out there. We have a plethora of mapping tools that EPA uses. And so I'll just be pulling out just like about 3 of them that I have used, and feel free to kind of dig into them. I included the link as well after the presentation. So next slide, Chip. So of course, why is EPA interested in EVs? As I mentioned, our office does a lot of technical assistance work. And so we just finished up a round of our emerging mobility work, which was really focused on equity, transit access, really helping communities kind of look at, the right of way. We have so many different scooters and bike shares. I just visited UNC Charlotte last month for like the first time in I don't know how many years. And I saw so many different scooters and bikes everywhere, and the new transit line, the light rail. And I didn't know where I was, first of all, but there's super exciting kind of mobility options that are now in cities. And so that workshop, that technical assistance tool really focused on how to get communities to start to think about, the right of way, what goes where. And so now we have transitioned to kind of piloting a toolkit that will focus on EVs and electric vehicles. And so different offices within EPA focuses on, different aspects of electric vehicles. For instance, our air quality division really focuses on, of course, you would think noise pollution, but they also focus on kind of like the cost benefits. And so our office here at the Office of Community Revitalization, we're really focusing on one, equity. And I know, you see the Teslas going here, there, everywhere. But, really looking at ensuring that communities that have faced, historical environmental injustice really get the benefits of EVs and EV infrastructure. So, as they become more popular with governments, businesses, and individuals, because there's plenty of, environmental and human health benefits, they're non-emitting exhaust fumes, they're much quieter, lower cost threshold to operate them rather than gas-powered vehicles. We really must ensure that, EV adoption, including the municipal fleet. So that includes, the transit buses, that includes, the trash, pickup. It improves environmental conditions in communities, that have faced historical environmental injustice. Also looking at EVs and EV infrastructure, ensuring that, they're equitably distributed and integrated in communities. And so we're not just having EV infrastructure in the Tesla communities or the communities who have, received, who have seen, the economic growth and the money and the investments. And so we're ensuring that, they're equitably distributed into communities who have faced environmental injustice. And then also thirdly, we help support broader locally led community-driven efforts to expand, economic opportunity, to improve human health in the environment and create thriving neighborhoods. So that goes back to kind of our roots of OCR of ensuring, we're having community, local-led driven efforts to get the players at the table to, have these conversations of some of the challenges and ensuring that we're creating thriving neighborhoods. Next slide. So what we've heard, we've done extensive research, and this is kind of what I've been doing over the past months, is hearing, understanding some of the challenges, the gaps and the needs in which that pertains to EVs. And like I said, other agencies and other part of our agency focuses kind of on the more technical side, or, kind of, I like to say, in the weeds of EVs. But our office, we're really looking at ensuring, like I said, that EVs are equitable distributed throughout communities, and investments are going into those communities who may or may not have seen them in the past. And so what we've heard, some of the gaps and needs of what we've heard from different organizations that are working in this space, and also from communities themselves, of what, this tool, or our EV tool, or EV equity tool, like we like to call it, will help address. So first is the location of charging stations. And so like I keep saying, you know, ensuring that they're equitably distributed in communities with EJ concerns. Also looking at some of the policies that encourage multifamily housing. So that's also new construction and, you know, retrofitting. As we know, a lot, if not many, of low income communities and individuals live in the multifamily housing, and also just in cities in general, you will find, you know, residents living in multifamily housing. And so that is an area in which we can include charging stations, also, you know, making charging stations available. Also ongoing EV charging station education. I think this is just, you know, EVs is the world of EVs. If you have kind of dove yourself into it, it can be a lot. And so, you know, maintenance and upkeep education for just communities and residents on that. Also some wayfinding and community education, or just really understanding, you know, community trade-offs and concerns. We've had in our past emerging mobility technical assistance workshop with Wilmington, Delaware, we heard from residents, you know, that said, hey, we already have electric vehicle fleet we already have electric buses. But one of the issues is that one, now I can't hear it come down my street. And so, you know, so many people are used to just hearing it come down the street and they run out to the bus stop, or now the headways, and it takes longer for my bus to get to me. But yes, it's good for the environment and human health, but now it takes me longer to get to work. And so understanding those trade-off concerns, as well with residents and community members, about integrating these EV and EV adoption. Also looking at fleet electrification as a priority. So like I said, the public transit fleets, the school buses, actually, one of our sister offices are working on looking at like using school buses as charging stations, and using them as kind of backup charging. And so, you know, looking at school buses also of electrifying them as well. Also waste management fleets, and also looking at balancing urban and rural costs, benefits of EV transition. As we know, kind of in rural areas, you know, broadband has been a huge challenge. So if you add EVs on top of that need broadband, you know, there's, you know, double issues there. And so looking at, you know, costs and benefits for the EV transition in rural communities. Next slide, Chip. And then also, I think looking at incentives for EV purchasing. And so, you know, lowering that cost, or, you know, for EV purchasing for communities, looking at guidance for smaller business districts and local governments. I think another great thing that our technical assistance does is look at those smaller business districts and local governments and seeing how we can help them out, how they're thinking about integrating different strategies to incorporate EVs. And so a smaller business district will look like, I interned at the University City Partners. I don't know if they're still there, but just that would be considered kind of a smaller business district that focuses on just the University City area. Another one might be NODA, that area. So just working with the kind of local smaller business district governments to figure out how can we use them and how they can leverage to integrate EVs into the community. And then also guidance for states, you know, how to spend charging with so much money coming and flowing into kind of states, you know, how do they spend that charging infrastructure and funding, you know, ways to support, you know, equity, economic revitalization, and other community goals that they may have. And so with our toolkit, you know, we're trying to get the sweet spot and, you know, narrow down and figure out, you know, what OCR is really focusing on, and focusing on, you know, equity and ensuring that EV adoption and EV infrastructure and money goes into communities that have seen disinvestment. Next slide. So just moving on to some EPA mapping tools. We have so many mapping tools here at EPA, and I'm super excited to kind of get back to my roots of mapping and data. So just a few of the kind of on the federal level of what mapping tools that EPA provides. So we have EJ Screen, or the Environmental Justice Screening and Mapping Tool. We have Enviro Atlas, Enviro Facts. We have the Cleanups in My Community, the smart location database, and then the watershed assessment and tracking environment result system, or waters. We have NEPA, and then we have the risk screening environmental indicators. So I'll just be talking, just a little bit more background on the EJ Screen tool, the cleanups in my community, and then Enviro Atlas. Next slide. So really quickly, so EJ Screen, you may or may not have played around with this tool, but EJ Screen is the environmental justice mapping and screening tool. It provides EPA with a kind of a nationally consistent database that approach for combining environmental and demographic indicators. EJ Screen users, you're able to choose a geographic area, and the tool then provides demographic and environmental information for that area. All of the EJ Screen indicators are publicly available data, so you can go on here. The link is provided. Hopefully you can send these slides around. You can go in there and play with it. It's a simple way to really provide a way to display information that includes a method for combining both environmental and demographic indicators into the environmental justice indexes. And so the EJ Screen includes 12 environmental indicators. There's 7 demographic indicators, and then 12 EJ indexes. And then in each EJ index, it combines demographic indicators with a single environmental indicator. So this tool can be used for a number of areas, including color-coded mapping, the ability to really generate some kind of standard reporting of a selected area. You can look at comparisons that show how a selected area compares to the state or an EPA region for the nation. And if you aren't familiar with EJ Screen, you might have been familiar with the past mapping tool called EJ View. But through our updates, we got to EJ Screen. But EPA uses EJ Screen primarily as a step when considering environmental justice in certain situations. The agency uses it to screen for areas that may be candidates for additional consideration or analysis to really outreach as EPA develops, different programs or policies or activities that may affect communities. Also, in my work specifically, we use EJ Screen in a lot of our technical assistance workshops to, see if that, the community that we're working in is a community of EJ concern. Also, the EJ Screen tool also helps support, the agency as a whole of, informing outreach and environmental practices, whether that's, implementing aspects of, of programs, of permitting, enforcement, also developing retrospective reports of EPA, also enhancing geographic-based initiatives. So EJ Screen in a nutshell is, a great resource, especially if you're looking at environmental justice concerns, you're looking into working in communities. It's just a great tool, and it's constantly being updated as we, lessons learned, and we get feedback also from, community and real people in real time. We have national environmental justice meetings that, we get, solid feedback and real feedback from people who live in communities of EJ concern. Next slide. So the next tool is Enviro Atlas. Enviro Atlas is kind of similar to, I would say, kind of like ArcGIS, if anybody's familiar with that. But it basically allows an analysis of the quote unquote what if scenarios, and it provides a national to local scale data analysis of ecosystem services, benefits, stressors, and the drivers of change. And it uses 7 broader benefit categories to organize its information and data on, ecosystem services. So, that looks at like clean air, natural hazard mitigation, climate, recreation, culture, food, fuel, materials, you name it, it has it on there. But essentially it looks at, ecosystem goods and services. and often shortened to the quote unquote ecosystem services, are benefits that humans receive from nature. So Enviro Atlas really looks at the benefits that of course humans that we receive from our great nature. And it underpins almost every aspect of the human well-being, including our food and water security, health, and economy. Many of the decisions we make, from how to develop community infrastructure to managing the land surrounding our communities, impact from the ecosystem services. We're not always conscious of the links between our surrounding environment or our well-being, and thus we may not always take that into account when we look at the value of ecosystems in decision-making process. So if you're into sustainability and all that good stuff, Enviro Atlas would definitely be a great tool to look at, because it allows you to see what the eco services are, what they are, the benefits, what's the stressors, and then the drivers of change. Next slide. And then really quickly, the cleanups in my community, it really looks at kind of brownfields. And I hope everybody may or may not know what a brownfield is, but basically it's an abandoned or idle or underused industrial or commercial property. And so the cleanups in my community is a tool that enables you to kind of map out and list, hazardous waste, cleanup locations. It has grant areas, and it really drills down to details about those cleanups and grants, and has other useful information. So if you're into, brownfields and cleanup sites, you can map the cleanup sites in your state or territory, or the whole country, or, just for a specific geographic area. And you're able to see kind of like all types of cleanups, just for a particular cleanup program or for other cleanup programs. So this mapping tool is really used in our brownfields area. And so if you're into brownfields, this is a tool that you'll be using kind of all the time, which just be very useful as well. So I think that's all I have for today, Chip. But if anybody has any questions or comments, we can answer them.
Was extremely valuable and important information. So thank you for sharing with us. Yes, we want to give you all an opportunity to ask our guest speakers some questions. So feel free to turn your cameras on and ask, or you can put them in the chat. But one thing I was thinking of to kind of get things started as far as questions go, for students that may be interested in working for the EPA, or maybe have an interest in some of these areas that you discussed today, what are some things that they could be doing now as undergraduates? I know you saw that we have a lot of freshmen in the room. What are some things that they could do now during their undergraduate career to set themselves up to be a candidate for consideration for the EPA?
Yeah, Hollis, do you want to kick that off since you've been through that process?
Yeah, alumni
Of course. Yeah, I would say definitely use your connections. I think it's great that you're even in this, setting right now, but use your connections. Also internships. Internships will show you kind of what you like, what you don't like, what areas you'll learn, as my mentor would say, you put different tools in your toolbox to kind of propel you where you need to be. But I would literally say interns. I took so many internships where, I had an internship at the Department of Energy and Environment here in DC, where I worked on sustainability and equity. And so I got that kind of experience. Also at UNC Charlotte, University City Partners. I don't know if they're still there, but if you're, interested in, the geography or the placemaking side of the house, that would be a good place to go. But I would just really say, intern, like, get that experience to figure out kind of, what area you really want to get into. And then you'll also have connections in different tools to put in your toolbox.
Thank you.
I guess I would echo that and say also to be sort of just as sort of a personal, remember when I was trying to get into the environmental field, my first thought was like EPA. You want to work on the environment, you go to the EPA. But of course, all like many other, if you're thinking about the federal government, many other agencies have impacts on the environment and have folks there who are working on environmental issues. So I mentioned the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They have a lot of impact on the environment and a lot of ways to improve that. Department of Transportation, of course, Department of Energy, Department of the Interior. There are lots of ways to get involved. And again, at the state level as well. You may know our current administrator formerly was the head of the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, or he was tapped to lead EPA. So there's avenues to be able to work in this area.
Thank you. And Hollis, I don't know if you saw in the chat. No, that's okay.
Yeah, I was typing back. And I would definitely say working with communities. I said in grad school, I said that I didn't want to work somewhere where I can't touch communities and I can't see my work and, actually get legs and, branch out and see it actually, working and impacting communities. So I think that's the most exciting for me for my current projects, and also being able to hear through my research kind of on the EV space, because it was new for a lot of us in the office. And so actually being able to hear from residents, community members of actual challenges and issues, and us being able to impact that and help that. I think that is the most exciting. I wish we could start traveling now, because I haven't got the opportunity to travel to actually, go to communities. Chip has got that awesome opportunity. But hopefully we're able to do that as well, because I'm pretty sure that I would be super excited to actually get on the ground. But we work with so many great just community leaders, great people who, are excited and ready for change in their community. And so I think that, that for me fuels me to, continue to, do the research, continue to talk to people, continue to kind of do the work here at EPA, because I can see the direct impact that it has on people. And so, yeah, if you're interested in, definitely, like, people think federal government, you don't really get to kind of get the connection to community, but in OCR, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be able to kind of, talk to people on the phone, go to places to actually see and connect with people. Yeah, I would say that's the most exciting, I think.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Don't be shy. Ask us why we're here.
Hey, Chip, I had a question for you. So I know that you've been at the EPA for a while. What would you say might be the most challenging thing about your job?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I would say that, one of the things is, I mean, like any other organization, just resources. I mean, there's so many competing priorities. We have multiple programs that we offer in our office, and our managers are sort of dealing with sort of scarce resources, how much money we have to actually run the program, or staff level, things like that, and sort of wanting to do more, wanting to do more projects. When I first took over the technical assistance program that I run, Building Blocks for Sustainable Communities, I think we had money that year to do 25 projects, and then probably that was in 2017, and then I think since then we've maybe done about that many. Since then, we've just gone for budget cuts and staffing cuts and things like that. And we've been able to do good work, and we've been able to do good work outside of like the direct technical assistance to the communities. But that can be one of the more frustrating things, sort of, maybe not being able to do as much as you otherwise might. And I think this is an issue everywhere, but you do have, one of the things in the federal government is, the presidency changes, every 4 or 8 years. And so the new people come in and they have different priorities. And so there's a lot of sort of shifting gears, and that can be very exciting. It can be, oh, that's an interesting idea that I hadn't thought of that we could address. Or it could be a little frustrating because we were working on this really hard and it was going really well, and now we've got to start working on this. And so that's, can be interesting, but that's part of it's just part of the gig.
Thank you. All right, last call for questions. Well, thank you, Chip and Hollis, for being here. We're so grateful for your time and joining our students today. We are so appreciative. So thank you so much.
Great. No, thank you for having us.
Of
And thanks
course.
for showing up.
Yeah.
And
All
good
right,
luck
well,
to everybody.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Here.